The campground. The 2 years. I'm still in need of assistance. I'm an Asperger who is 58 years old and we've been married for 38 years. She has had at least one emotional and physical affair throughout our marriage, and she has slept with at least 7 other people when we were apart. We have not had a physical marriage for the past 24 years. Though I'm not thrilled that this has all happened, I'm not too bothered by it other than the fact that our lack of closeness sometimes makes me feel incredibly furious and miserable. My diagnosis has made a difference in my life. I've shed a few pounds, restored a good portion of my health, and longed for some closeness, but I'm not sure where to start. How does it feel to want someone and have them want you back when you're in love? When all I can do is duplicate most of their emotions, how can I truly love them? My spouse is not raising any red lights for me. Her computer and phone are available to me, and I always know where she is and who she is with because she knows me. She isn't cheating, I'm sure of it. Because of who I am, I cannot. Although my understanding of these feelings is limited, I would still desire to experience some of them. Is there anyone who can tell me? I suppose my question is, where do I start? How does it feel to be wanted, to be in love, and to be aware of the hurt caused by loss? I don't want to live and die half a person, and I don't feel any of these things. When we reunited and ended our separation in 2008, our issues were resolved. It is important to note that I am an SD and that loyalty is one of my traits. In the 4 years that we were apart, my wife claimed to have slept with 12 different males, most of whom were stronger built and better lovers than me. Hurt. Although I didn't particularly enjoy it, I went to IC to get through it all because I am steadfast in my commitments. Wife says don't bother, it's the past. In terms of computers, I am a bit of a dinosaur. Married for nearly 40 years, I am 60 years old. I deleted numerous other programs and the start functions in an attempt to eliminate a few unwanted programs. After I used System Restore, I saw a number of odd files on my first page, the one with all the programs, when it started to function. I opened the typical stuff, accounting tasks, information downloads, etc. But when I open one, it has a 15-page TypeScript that contains nasty chat with a guy named Bill from late 2010 to early 2011. It's evident from their conversation that they have shared numerous nights of sleep. Next, I find about 25 harder photos of flowers in a file containing pictures of flowers. A ton of offensive photos. I'm not even going to get into the specifics right now. My spouse went over to her family's cottage to stay with her adopted daughter, who was left alone, and they planned to return home together on Friday morning. I'm not sure at this time. In any case, I gave her a call and read her a portion of the TypeScript. She first claimed it wasn't her, then said she couldn't recall, and then claimed it happened during our time apart. I informed her that we had been back together for 3 years by 210,210. Subsequently, she stated that she was creating fiction, but she did not specify why. She's writing the newest raunchy novel, I think. She mentioned he passed away as her last bullet point. Even though it was a few years ago, she was still avoiding a guy who wasn't me, even though he didn't appear to be a zombie. She then remarked, "Don't read it anymore, it will bother me." I understand. Thank you. I appeared on the photos after around 20 minutes. I informed her what was in the photos when I gave her a call back. She said, "Don't look," again, and I responded too late. After hanging up with me, she hasn't been reachable. I must first ask her for more details regarding the duration of the romance. Why was she reluctant to have a physical relationship with me when she was having sex with someone else? I have called her brother, sister, and the man she handles her accounting for, so I know where I'm going. I'll wait to see what I am doing before calling my family because I haven't spoken to them in a long. I know what to do, be polite and control my temper, talk to her about everyday matters but not our relationship. Make a suggestion for marriage counseling. Divide up my accounts. Find her a decent attorney and serve her. I think there is no wrong with Canada, but I would like to see if there is any method. Her adultery can be found in the divorce decree. There isn't much property divided because all we truly have is my pension, which supports the spouse who gets divorced. Thus, unless I continue to work until I'm 65, at which point I'll receive roughly $60,000, her pension is roughly $10,000, while mine is closer to $50,000. She has always assumed that since we can't afford to be apart, we would stay together. In addition, I have to work for an additional 5 years while receiving dialysis, which limits my housing alternatives. I would also need to be able to afford to live close to an apartment. My only fear, I suppose, is dying by myself. Finding the one I did find was challenging enough. It stinks. Remarks. I've sent you a message. Proceed with your life. Don't discard her. Don't read it once more. Look away from the photos. If needed, store them. She is who she is. You say that living is more important than dying by yourself. Alright, so you'll have to accept this and thankfully, there won't be a final vote on it. She is still free to go. It is possible that she will be struck by a car tomorrow, thus nothing will change. Although it seems simple to say, this is nonetheless important. In your heart, divorce her. She is who she is. She just genuinely cares about you as a pet or as a safeguard from having to live alone. She now shares a room with you. Adapt to this reality. After all, one shouldn't have trusted someone who spoke such harsh words. Take up certain activities and put money aside. Based on what you say you desire, this is done. The other person replies, you won't be alone for long, and you will feel less alone than with a cheater. She claims, presumably by disclosing to these individuals in her life, everything has been damaged by me. When she phoned me back, she informed me that although she had met the man during their separation, she hadn't seen him until 2010 and had only seen him once or twice a month. Really, all I said to her was that I was disappointed and saddened that this was the situation rather than angry. She reminded me that she was attempting to maintain composure at the moment. I couldn't move much at the time, my kidneys were failing, and my heart rate was low, yet I still worked and completed my tasks. She said that having an affair with him prevented her from giving up, and that she now had nothing left to live for after I revealed the truth to her and introduced her to her sister, brother, and a woman she dearly liked. Oh, and they met maybe 6 or 9 times total. Should I become a doormat and our marriage into a joke because of it? I asked her. If that's how you choose to view it, she says, so that we can resolve this together, I want her to return home. However, I think the marriage is done. I may see a different counselor in addition to my psychiatrist, especially a course on mindfulness. As far as I can tell, the camera was stationary when they took the images. To be clear, I am an SD with emotional impairments that make it hard for me to gauge how females and other people are reacting to me. I'm jealous of you guys since I can't seem to find girlfriends quickly. I don't know many women and I don't have many pals at 60. I'm not even sure exactly how I would approach it. Living in a cold, unloving environment is what I fear more than losing my wife. Life is about conquering fear, and even though I dislike the thought of being alone myself, I enjoy who I am enough to be by myself. Nevertheless, I still want a partner, I simply can't seem to find one. I will emerge from this in good form, no matter what occurs, and with sound advice. The psychologist's statement that I was toxic and that she would never be able to pull herself together if she continued living with me was the catalyst for our first breakup. After living away for a few months, she returned in disarray. Our condo rates skyrocketed because the board was suing everyone, which is why I believe that a lot was going wrong the second time. It turns out that the person who created Trump with a few $1 million is also the one behind our condo. She made the decision to move in with us and bring her mother. We both have palliative care experience, and we wouldn't allow her to go there before it was absolutely necessary. However, my mother-in-law's condition worsened to the point that she required more attention than we could give. I objected when the wife said we had to buy a house so she could set up the upstairs to take care of her mother while I would stay below. She was fighting the condo board, trying to support a drug-addled Russian couple, taking care of her mother, and helping individuals in true need. We parted after I told him that enough was enough. We began dating approximately 3 years and 2 months after her mother passed away, and 6 months later we reconciled. Until last year, she had not bothered to tell me about her social life or her activities. I only learned this spring that she was seeing 12 guys. While I struggled to get her there, she took advantage of the fact that the majority of the 12 could get her there in excellent time. Since then, I've been reeling. She seems to believe that her actions were appropriate and that I should take responsibility for her cheating. She concludes by saying that she needs him to maintain her sanity. She advises me to move on as that was 3 years ago. I only did it 6 or 9 times. He's dead, she won't do it again, and I'm not very good in bed. To make sense of what transpired and why, I would like to speak with her. I will disclose her to our son, our friends, relatives, and anybody else who needs to know if she keeps acting in this way. Spent the day in the hospital a few days later. Neurological examinations and dialysis, or I could have replied sooner. Tomorrow, the wife is coming home to chat. She wants to give it another go, and I have a lot of questions. She's beginning to realize how devastated I am and how much it hurts. I will have to tell him why if, on the other hand, she determines it won't work, and I agree. I've read a lot of times on this site that warning someone about the repercussions is the best approach to encourage a cheater to put their head back where it belongs. At this point, do I aim to go scorched earth? No. Should I introduce her to our family? Not really, but if her lying persists, deceive and attempt to ignore it, or simply forget. For example, how many times, 6 or 9, did she share his bed? Key facts, it is still a choice. She kind of stated the same thing, and I informed her that when she was cheating behind my back, there would be consequences. Funny enough, this is the first time in our marriage that she is scared of what I might say or do. By the way, my wife is not youthful at all, she's 59. Now that my wife is back, we had a disagreement and an explanation last night and today. She referred to him as God's psychic mate. I informed her that Jesus set restrictions on us, including the ability to have only one spouse. She remarked that because I have my issues in bed, she thought our marriage was non-existent. Never satisfied her, I might be a pain at times due to my ASD, and I never got anything done without her assistance. She added that her partner managed commercial lighting and stage operations for events like MTV award shows and similar productions. We made a 6-month agreement to share the same home. She must tell me everything, even the details that would cause me pain, regarding her affair. We'll manage till we have enough money to part ways. It didn't matter, she said. She intended to leave and move into her automobile. Please pardon me, God. I told her to go do it if it makes her happy. The same, when she declares she wants to X herself and that she has no purpose in life. Okay, I'll go to the bank on Monday to open my own accounts. Her car won't be paid for by me. I also wish to cancel the credit card she employs. After that, I have half-hour appointments with a few lawyers. To beat her head and devour her alive, I want to track down a hammerhead shark. The law in Canada states that assets are divided 50/50, but if you can show adultery by comparing the chat room transcripts she completed with the photographs, you can expedite the process and get it done in a few months. The normal amount of alimony for a guy earning $100,000 a year is almost $25,000. However, after taxes, that amount drops to roughly $15,000. A bit too much for me, but doable. I have never truly experienced this kind of grief and pain on the distaff. She was talking about how amazing he was when I spoke to her, and I got her to acknowledge that he wasn't good, rather, he was immoral. To date, my language has been my digest failure. For 5 years, I worked as a truck driver and was always clearly angry and felt betrayed, not to mention cynical. According to one of my students, when it came to using foul language, I was the most genuine, and natural. Since of my ASD, I struggle with manning up since I have to consider everything all the time. I must unwind, clear my head, and allow things happen organically. I've discovered the truth regarding the other man. According to his obituary, he died on August 25th. He hadn't spoken to my wife in almost 6 weeks, so she was wondering if they were still together or if he had moved on to someone else. His supervisor replied to her email with the news that he had passed away and been cremated. They had met on the internet, where he was. She claims that she didn't love him and that he would never marry her, and that the website was solely for hookups. All they shared was slumbering together, and he was adept at it. She saw him no more than once a month, if the transcripts of their talks are to be believed. The copies also support her total of 9. My issue is that, although we get along well and I see her as a spacemate, most of the time I can't even look at her. There are moments when I really like her and wish I could love her back. I get angry and start yelling multiple times a day, swearing at her and making references to things she said or did in the typescript or in the photos. I believe that I have PTSD. My first meeting with a psychiatrist is this Friday, and I have other appointments starting on September 2nd, when school resumes. I have some new clothes that strangely fit well on me. On September 3rd, I went to the rugby field and the gym. It gets me out of the house to do things I love and home when my wife is too weary to accomplish anything, but I am getting too near to retirement to feel much enthusiasm. Like converse and debate with me. She has been pleading with me to stay and to keep the issue from our son. I am ready to destroy the S now that I know the names of his brothers, sisters, and child. That might make me a really decent man, but in that moment, he ruined my family. I will make sure that everyone knows what a piece of shit he was, from his employer to his ex, along with my son's family. All I feel now, when I'm in a quiet, safe location, is sadness and disappointment as I struggle to accept someone who appears to be my wife but isn't. We have separate finances, and while she can afford to pay for her automobile, I will not pay for bills or credit cards that I did not initiate or use. Though there is still time, I have seen a few lawyers and haven't yet found one I like. She cheated because our marriage has been so awful that she realized she shouldn't have married me after just 2 weeks of marriage. She lost interest and had unpleasant premarital and marital physical time. I grew to be 340 pounds on a 5'8" frame and didn't give a damn about sharing a bed. In 2010 and 2011, I was really sick. My pulse rate was in the low 30 seconds due to a heart medication, which caused the issue. I was sent to cardio rehab at the time, where I completed the workouts while taking medication for around 3 weeks after failing a stress test that I had been given. The medication was changed after the mistake was identified, but it took an additional 8 months to repair the harm. I believe that at the time I was still employed. My spouse would drop me off at work and head over to his downtown condo. I've since reduced to 195 pounds, but I'm still too big, so I'm attempting to shed more weight. I've been walking a lot, and dialysis has helped. I feel so much better. My spouse has promised to do anything I want of her, so I can stay or leave, dispatch her or not. We've decided to wait for things to calm down before making a choice. Even though she has stated that she doesn't want any money from me, I don't think that will last very long because we live in one of the most expensive cities in North America. I'm now having a lot of trouble with my mind's static images, which can cause fits of intense rage and irritation. Despite not being aggressive, I can be harsh when I speak. I'm snarky and utilize visuals a lot. She isn't used to my challenging her and refusing to let her alter the narratives. Her head appears to be emerging from the sand. She has acknowledged that although her partner was incredibly successful, he wasn't always kind. She claimed that they had a relaxed conversation before she left for home. She believes that since there was no love, I should feel better about it, even though it just seems to make things worse. Feeling or bond between them. She had to admit that she had slept with him when I inquired. I inquired as to how dating another man differs depending on whether one is in love. Even now, you have not kept your word. She said that because I am not as spiritual or pious as she is, I never really believed in my vows. However, she was the one who broke her vows while I did not, and she was the devout one. I will overcome this and come out stronger after 8 days, one step at a time. Upon waking up, I deceived my calm and despondent spouse. She has never looked like that to me. She repeatedly apologized without making an attempt to defend herself. She called herself a wicked person for the very first time. If I threw her out, she said she would understand. She would publicly declare that she didn't deserve what she had done and that she couldn't look me in the eye. I assured her that I would not discard her just yet and that I intended to take my time. For the first time in a very long time, she prepared my breakfast and brought it to the table. Subsequently, she claimed that the worst thing she had done was to become roommates with me by ceasing to have sex with me some 30 years ago. She then asked if I wanted to share her bed. I was afraid because my past and lack of abilities have contributed significantly to my celibacy. We did it even though she didn't seem to mind, and everything worked out all right. I currently have the highest level of self-esteem and confidence I have ever had. I'm still following my 6-month plan. She is unable to locate the 3 copies of my evidence that I have. 3 sets of documents, 1 to be copied and delivered to my family and hers, 1 to be exposed to the deceased man's brother and sister, and 1 in my lawyer's safekeeping to be seen by her attorneys and the courts, but only if it appears to be required. I haven't tried to locate another woman yet, but right now I'm too happy to think about those things. I'm demonstrating to myself that there are no longer any issues I saw. The most amazing night ever. I am not naive, though. STD examination. Sure, let's both get clear. Do I cherish her? I'm not sure yet, but we're going to use the good money from my plan to find out together. My partner, singly, and I visit a psychiatrist. I still get PTSD and sometimes get angry sometimes, but I manage it. It is a little more challenging because I also have ASD. I have read the transcript and viewed the photographs till I can no longer perceive them as objects. I would even venture to say that a few of the photos are almost works of art. I'm still upset that he went away before I had a chance to speak with him and let him know what was going on. Regarding the wife, it would be worthwhile to stay together if she can make me fall in love with her once more. In addition to having grandchildren, my wife's pension and our 40-year investment would insult a stranger on the street. She claims that although she didn't bother to tell me about her intention to leave me for him, I am not her backup plan. She has to clarify it for me. I wonder, did he do this or that, every time I touch her or when we are getting close? I still want a timeline because I spent a lot of time being medicated into unconsciousness. At the very least, I want the time frames to be apparent. My recollections of her during her affair are really quite sparse. The evidence is with the lawyers, in case I need it, and copies can be sent to both her and his families. In 6 months, if things have improved, I'll take everything back and burn it, but save a stick just in case. If not, I'll file. I believe my wife never told them she was married based on what I've read and what she's told me. They got to know each other during our split and as we were headed toward an unfulfilled divorce. He hadn't called her in 6 weeks, 2 of which he'd missed, so I can't imagine that meeting just in the mornings and spending less than 2 hours together should have alerted him to the fact that something wasn't right. Instead, he passed away unexpectedly in his sleep. After a month of hardly communicating, my wife asked him in their most recent email whether he was splitting up with her for someone else. It's possible, in my opinion, that she was going to be discarded regardless. My issue, I suppose, is that I am not quite satisfied with the person I may grow into. At one time, I wanted he was still alive so I could use the evidence against him in the workplace. Why would he show his family and his 18-year-old daughter, who is in her first year of college, this? I can hardly vent on him or ruin his name if he was unaware that she was married, that she had approached him, and that she had led him to believe she was divorced. What about the other men? Neither of us was legally separated, nor were we living together. I had assumed that it had an impact. A separation is a separation for the purposes of Canadian family law, whether it was done legally or not. When we first got back together, I was aware of the 12 and had already discussed them. Mostly one relationship, one night thing. They make sense to me, and my wife was very honest about it. They didn't make me feel in danger. According to my wife, she didn't think it was anything more than a physical affair. Rather, she went to him for solace and release from it. There's a nostalgia for the affair that she didn't have for the others when we discuss it. I had the impression there was more there based on the emails. When she called him, he had been dead for 2 weeks and hadn't spoken to her in 6 weeks. I get the impression that he was going to dump her anyhow, but I assume that if he had been around when she sent him the email, she would have gone to him. She said she didn't know but didn't think it would have lasted much longer when I asked if he had replied and would she still be with him. She appreciated their sexual relationship, but I'm not sure if she has told me everything that happened between them. But he's out of grasp, vanished. My wife kind of freaked out when I offered that we meet up with a medium so he could swing over for a conversation, even though I don't believe in ghost whisperers. She thinks he could come, and she does believe. She seemed to bond with him the most in their relationship, which was also the one that wounded the most, I suppose. I'm not sure where we're going with this, but if we do this, I'll never be able to move past him. I apologize for my rambling. This has been quite the roller coaster journey. Hopefully, I make sense. I'm still figuring out how to put things in order, and I still think I might get a divorce in a few months. And so, here we are. I'm always coming up with queries, and I generally ask her. I think I said 6 months, but I might be wrong. She claimed she had tried to forget about it and had succeeded up until I reminded her, at which point she descended into hell once more. I have to stop asking her about her affair if I want to be married. She stated she was upset with me and that she had exaggerated the numbers to hurt me when we were speaking since she was not going to respond. Even though she had sexual relations with 6 of them, 2 of them weren't very good. She only went out with 8 men. She keeps changing her mind, and I'm not sure whether she's serious, so I need a more thorough explanation. Sad or furious? I believe that before deciding when to proceed with the divorce, I must finish the paperwork and consult with the attorney. Updated after a year. 1. I came to the realization a few weeks ago that holding someone accountable is not the same as wanting them to hurt as much as you do. 2. I discovered that one person can only own what they are accountable for, and that the other person must own what she is accountable for. 3. I'm accountable for fostering an environment in our marriage that could lead her to believe that having an affair was the best course of action. However, I don't hold her accountable for her role in setting up circumstances that made her think that cheating was a wise course of action. 4. I discovered that there is a time and place for anger, that love must eventually take the lead in a relationship, and that relationships must end. 5. Forgiveness is a decision as well. It's not at all like a eureka moment, a turning point, or anything sentimental. Accepting what transpired, forgiving the other person, and forgiving oneself are choices. 6. I accepted a job that I loved, but it wouldn't bring me fame or fortune. I've had a lot of success helping other people's kids and daughters, as well as my own son, make wise decisions. Only the students I instructed and those who instructed me will ever be aware of or recall my actions. That's something I can deal with. 7. That the piece of garbage performed amazing acts, was well known in his industry, and brought in new celebrities. However, not much he accomplished lasted past the end of the night. Ultimately, regardless of his coolness, he remained a man who would never have an extramarital affair with a married lady. I also wouldn't. 8. One must first value oneself. I'm still here, too. Last night, I went to bed for the first time and dozed off without giving the matter a second thought. Didn't have any nightmares or consider her adultery at all. The man I was before is no longer there. I will always be the one who was deceived and she will always be the one who cheated. However, I can accept that. Now that I'm relaxed, I accept it. Even though I still have questions, I'm prepared to learn the answers. We still have a ways to go and more MC and IC will be needed to resolve this. We are married. I learned that this past weekend was our anniversary. 40 years. My response: how do you people feel about the conclusion? It's possible that some viewers are questioning why he didn't simply walk out on his wife. However, he is over 60, therefore I don't think his circumstances can be compared to those of guys in their 30 to 50. Do you concur? Please leave your comments, subscribe, and hit the bell below. Hopefully, this story has given you some new perspective on long-term marriages.